I want to tell you about one of the worst times of my life that ended up becoming one of the most important, really. So about 20 years ago, I wrote one of my favorite books, The Creative License, Giving Yourself Permission to Be the Artist You Truly Are. Maybe you've read it. Well, I wrote that book during a really pivotal moment in my life. Everything was kind of a mess. Horrible, to be honest. I'd just been fired for the very first time in my life from a job that I absolutely hated. I was the chief creative officer of an ad agency, and it was, I don't know, what everybody told me was the peak of my advertising career. So nowhere to go but down, I guess. But getting fired felt like being cut loose at sea. I was completely lost. I was aimless. I had no clue what was going to happen next. And I just felt really crappy about myself because of what had happened. But the funny thing is, what felt like total failure at the time turned out to be this incredible gift. And I finally had the freedom to explore what truly mattered to me. So I had this contract to write a new book about, well, pretty much whatever I wanted to. And I was also freelancing because I'd lost my job, which gave me a kind of flexibility that I'd never had before. But the problem was that I had no idea what the book was supposed to be about. I was completely stuck. And so I made a decision that I would just hit the road and see what happened. I figured I'd visit some creative friends, and maybe along the way the trip would spark some ideas. Maybe they had answers. Maybe the journey itself would turn out to be a source of the answer. I don't know. And for this trip, I brought along my fresh new sketchbook, volume 35, thick, toothy paper, watercolor paper, and a really sturdy burlap cover. And perfect for throwing in my bag and carrying around the country. And I actually started filling it a few weeks before I left town. And the first spreads I did were pretty simple. I was just doing portraits from random photos and everyday objects like a banana, even the innards of a toilet. And this paper was the heaviest and roughest that I had ever used. And so I experimented trying to figure out how to use it. I tested with a dip pen, with some Sakura Pigma fine liners, with a watercolor set. My first stop was Minneapolis to see my friend and one of my first mentors, Roz Stendhal. Roz is this fantastic artist who absolutely loves drawing animals. So, of course, we went to the Natural History Museum and the zoo. And we also went to IKEA because, Swedish meatballs. Her house was this wonderful, creative, jumbly mess. But her studio was completely different. It was meticulously organized. It had rows of these metal file cabinets that were filled with rubber stamps broken down by category and special books that you would look up the indexes of these stamps. And then there were all these neatly labeled pots of supplies. Everything had its place. It was meticulous. And Roz inspired me to approach creativity with both playfulness and with discipline, and to create systems that actually support spontaneity. And I took lots of notes about Roz and about her husband, Dick, who's an engineer, and her whole process of doing stuff. It was just fascinating and new to me. And next, I flew to Oregon on the West Coast to visit Dan Price. He was a huge influence on my early sketchbook journaling, definitely a founding father of sketchbook art. There's something really special about spending time with friends who draw constantly. And it completely reaffirms why I love doing this. Dan and I have sketched together in so many places over the years. Death Valley and Chicago and the Colorado Rockies and Detroit and our hometowns, New York City in my case, and Joseph, Oregon in his. We've gone back and forth and visited each other and drawn the town red. But this trip to Oregon was really transformative for me. Being 3,000 miles away from Manhattan and camping out in the wilds of Eastern Oregon, it just completely opened my mind in ways that I wasn't expecting. And the fog of uncertainty that had been following me started to lift. And I started to see everything with fresh eyes, and I had ideas and thoughts and insights that I'd just never considered before. And when I left Oregon, I felt genuinely changed, like I was finally hitting somewhere that actually mattered. My final stop was San Francisco, where I visited my friend Andrea Scher. And she put me up in this apartment on a street that was just crazy, covered in all these amazing murals. Andrea was just another revelation for me. She introduced me to teaching online. If it wasn't for her, I would never be doing this. She taught me about digital photography. She introduced me to her boss, the incredible Sark, who was this creative force all of her own. Maybe you've read her books too. And Andrea's also a terrific photographer, and she shot my author portrait for the back of the book. So all the way home on the plane, I was just buzzing. And even the flight itself home, I saw differently. It became this sort of feast for my eyes. And I looked out the window and I did these little watercolors of the view outside my window as I saw America pass underneath me on my way home from this transformative experience that I'd had. And by the time I landed, my sketchbook was overflowing with notes and ideas and drawings that all eventually found their way into my book. And I also talked to several other artist friends when I came home, and I learned about their practice. Calligraphers, painters, other sketchbook artists, they all contributed their ideas to make what I was creating something completely new and something that I really needed. That's so much the key, is to write the book I want to read. A week after I got back, I landed a new job kind of by accident, and I ended up keeping it for the next 10 years. So my window of freedom closed pretty quickly. But that trip was a real turning point for me. It taught me to trust my creativity, to be okay with uncertainty, to look at the world through different eyes, and to be open to completely new experiences, and to recognize that that's a key part of being an artist, of being a creative person. And also to see my sketchbooks as this place where answers could emerge naturally if I spent enough time between the pages, exploring, kicking ideas around, trying stuff out. And from that journey came something that still resonates today. The Creative License was published about a year after this trip, but it was inspired by everything that I discovered on that journey. And it's gone on to help so many other people who, like me, were searching for direction and permission to create. And after all these years, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people have read this book and said that it meant a huge amount to them. And recently I turned all the ideas that I found and that I discovered in writing this book and have built on over the last couple decades, and I turned it into a course at Sketchbook Skool. And it's also called The Creative License, giving yourself permission to be the artist you truly are. And in this course, you can learn to embrace your creativity, to dive into sketchbook journaling, and to start your own artistic adventure. It's designed to challenge you in a fun and exciting way, to break your preconceptions, to look at the world differently, and to really understand what it means to be an artist deep down, something that anybody can do if they just spend a little time going through these exercises and pushing themselves in new and fun directions. And you can sign up today for my course and take that first step toward discovering the artist in you. It was so wonderful to have a transformative experience like this that all these years later still means so much to me, and to be able to capture it and share it and turn it into lessons that we can all benefit from. I hope that if you enjoy this channel and you enjoy my work, you'll look into my course, The Creative License. And even if you don't, if you come to this channel and you watch the videos that I'm making, know that all of them are informed by what I learned back then and what I still apply to my art today. I hope you'll join me.